2024 post-college football season and 2025 pre-draft analysis. Today's subject is Colorado's quarterback, Shedure Sanders. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. Shedure Sanders, yes or no?
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever
Okay, continuing on with the handful of quarterbacks that I'm going to analyze and give you my take on before the draft. These are the guys that are either hot topic quarterbacks, lightning rod quarterbacks, for sure thing quarterbacks, guys that I like quarterbacks. I've done Cam Ward, and today is Shedure Sanders. Now, I'm going to come at this from four different angles. Number one is mental. Number two is physical. Number three is leadership. And number four is miscellaneous. And when we get to miscellaneous, I will explain what that entails then. Okay, Shedure Sanders, University of Colorado quarterback, pretty much a controversial figure right now going into the draft. There have been a lot of people that have pontificated as to whether he is better than Cam Ward. He's the best quarterback. He's the second best quarterback. He's going he's going number 2 to Cleveland. He's going number 3 to the Giants. Shedure Sanders, the opinion on him is split. I'm going to give you my take on where I think he is and what he's all about today. Again, this is just my opinion. Okay, before we get started, I need to ask you this question. You know, I kind of keep an eye on some of the NFL gurus, pundits, experts, and what they're saying about these quarterbacks. And this line or this way of thinking, I've seen this more than once. And this was in reference to Jackson Dart, the quarterback for Ole Miss. But you could also say this about Shedure Sanders, Cam Ward, Kyle McCord from Syracuse. And that is this. Talking about Jackson Dart, coming from a QB-friendly offense at Ole Miss, Dart will likely need time to adjust to the pro game. My question is this: why in the hell doesn't the pro game use a QB-friendly offense? Does that make sense to you? Let me know in the comments. Okay, let's get started with Shedure. And we'll start with mental. I think that this is the most important category that a quarterback has to master. And when we talk about mental, I'm talking about the ability to make great decisions when the ball's snapped. That is the number one skill that a quarterback has to have. If your quarterback's not a great decision maker, it really doesn't matter what kind of arm talent he has or what he can do with his legs. It's all about making great decisions when the ball is snapped. Okay, so as far as Shedure Sanders goes and decision making, I think that one of the areas that he struggled in his career at Colorado, and you know, I never watched him at Jackson State, so this is just based off of 2 years of watching him for the Buffaloes. But when they would run their downfield passing game, their intermediate route concepts, he had a tendency to hold the ball too long in the pocket. Now, I'm watching these games on my laptop or on TV, whatever, and in a lot of cases, I could see the entire route play out in front of me. I could see all the receivers, what routes they were running, what concept they were running. I could also see what coverage they were running it against. I had a pretty good idea of what Sanders' reads should have been. And I just think he was hesitant to pull the trigger on certain throws. So, you know, there's an anticipation thing involved there where we're not getting the ball delivered when it needs to be delivered. Holding on to the ball too long. Now, what this does for your offense that is on the negative side, number one, there is a rhythm and tempo to each route concept based on the coverage that you're seeing and your quarterback's going through his read progression on the snap of the ball. Based on what the defense is doing, that is telling him where he goes when he hits the last step of his drop. Now, for some reason, if that situation's cloudy, if the receiver that he should have been going to or the side of the field he should have been going to was taken away, that's when he snaps eyes to the backside or he finds his running back and checks it down. Now, if you've got these route concepts that are playing out and the receiver that should be getting the rock isn't getting it on time, that throws a monkey wrench into your offense because now it's catch and tackle or it's ball knocked down instead of catch and run after the catch, right? That's number one. Number two, and this one was really obvious for Colorado in 2 years. When Shedure held the ball unnecessarily in the pocket, it led to sacks. And he was sacked 77 times in 2 years. And the first year in 2023, his offensive line was not very good. They improved this year, but that still puts tremendous pressure on your offensive line when your quarterback stands in the pocket and holds the rock. And so what you saw a lot of times when Colorado would run the downfield passing game was Shedure hold it, and then try to move around and escape, slide, climb, whatever, to try to make something happen. And at times he was successful, and at times he wasn't, but that's not an efficient way for the quarterback to run the passing game. When Colorado ran their quick game, and I talked about this in an earlier show this year, I said Colorado needed to run more quick game because Shedure Sanders, I thought, ran that really well. And the reason why is because it was like a one receiver read, hitch route, slant route, stick route, and Sanders would take his drop, 1, 2, 3, stride, and the ball's out. Or GST, grab the snap, stab that back foot in the ground, and the ball is out. The offense just flowed smoother in the quick game because Sanders was getting that ball out of his hand. Okay. And so with the decision making, there is somewhat of a disconnect with the downfield passing game, which forces Sanders to hold the ball in the pocket unnecessarily. Okay, let's move to physical. Sanders is 6'2", about 215 pounds. He's got good size for a quarterback. You know, his arm is good. It's not phenomenal. You know, he doesn't have a world-class arm. His accuracy, however, is good when he throws the ball on time, right? He was in the 70% completion percentage, which is awesome. That's where you want your quarterbacks, right? Especially if you're running like a spread offense and you're running a lot of quick game stuff, your QB needs to be in that 70% range. So the accuracy stuff was good for him. And I think where he made up for the downfield throws being inconsistent was he threw a bunch of screens. And of course, that's going to help any QB's completion percentage, the screens in the quick game, right? He's got a good arm. It's not world class. His accuracy is good when he gets the ball out of his hand. His feet now are another matter. He had inconsistent feet. And again, I keep going back to the quick game. And I said the same thing about Cam Ward. Cam Ward, when he ran intermediate routes, his feet got sloppy in the pocket where he ended up flat-footing a lot of his throws. He's so talented that he could do that. But when you flat-foot it back there, you're throwing the ball late. Okay? If your feet are jacked up, that ball is not coming out when it needs to be coming out. And Shedure had inconsistent feet. And that's a fact. Okay. His mechanics overall, little inconsistent. There were times this year where I watched him in the fourth quarter of games and I went, what are you doing? It was like he was either dinged, got hit in the head and was dinged, or he had just cashed it in and didn't give a shit about what was going on in the fourth quarter. But he did some stuff that was pretty amazing to see. So it got to the point this year where I'm watching games and in real time thinking to myself, when I'm watching Shedure do this stuff, you know, he may be using a form of protest here. Protesting the fact that he's been getting his ass kicked all game, pissed off at his offensive line because he's holding the ball or they're not doing their job, and just said, screw it, and went out and just went through the motions. I don't know. but it wasn't a good look, and it's kind of concerning. It'd be concerning if I were a general manager of an NFL team. Okay, that's physical. Let's move on now to the two categories where I think Shedure Sanders really becomes a red flag for any NFL team, and we're going to start with leadership. In my opinion, the gurus in the front offices of the NFL disregard leadership abilities, whether it's positive or negative, with every quarterback that they draft. And so you get these guys that come into the league that test great at the combine, put up big numbers in college, and you draft them and pay them a shitload of money, and then they're a bust. And you realize that you drafted the wrong guy because they are a problem. They're a problem with attitude, lack of leadership, the wrong face of the franchise, cause problems in the locker room. Those things need to be evaluated during the evaluation process, but they never are. And this is a red flag for Shedure Sanders. And we're going to talk about some of the crap that he pulled this year and last year on the field. And as we go through these things, I want you to ask yourself, is that the mark of a great leader? And I want to say this before I move on. From the beginning of time, there have been quarterbacks that were leaders negatively, and their teams struggled. That's just a fact. That's the way it works. So when you get these guys out there, and I'm sure I might get some comments on this video going, hey, what are you talking about, coach? You know, he's just a fiery guy and he's competitive and all that bullshit. His type of leadership is really toxic. Even at the NFL level, it's toxic. When your leader is a self-centered, entitled, tough guy who cannot control his emotions, who cannot take criticism of any form, who cannot handle adversity, that's not the type of guy that you want leading your team. There's this myth out there, I think, where these people are under the impression that what you do in college, as soon as you sign that NFL contract and become a professional, you're going to act like one. And one of the things that I've said forever and ever and ever when it came to recruiting, the guys I coached, right? Recruiting the guys we were looking at, a leopard doesn't change its spots. And what Sanders did at Colorado, you can bet he did at Jackson State. You can bet he did in high school, and you can bet he will do or try to do in the NFL. A leopard doesn't change its spots. That's a fact. Toxic, negative leadership. So with leadership, it can be vocal, and the most effective form of leadership is in action. Sanders is 0 for 2. He's 0 for 2. So if you want your leader to be the guy, your starting quarterback, to walk on the field talking shit to your opponent before the game, he's your guy. If you want your guy in the face of adversity to be shoving officials, shoving teammates, throwing coaches and his teammates under the bus after the game and doing a bunch of stupid crap, he's your guy. Red flag. And as far as leadership goes, I'm going to ask, can you think of one quarterback in the NFL, in history of the NFL, that was consistently successful, led his team to titles, Super Bowls, championships, was a winning quarterback, and got stuff done on the field? Can you think of one quarterback in NFL history that has done any of the stuff that Shedure Sanders has done at Colorado? Going to college, last year, first round of the draft, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, and J.J. McCarthy. Any one of those 6 guys. You take Caleb Williams wearing a red frickin' dress for a photo shoot and nail polish, take that out of the equation, but put him in with the other 5 guys. Can you think of one instance where any of those 6 dudes did anything like what Shedure Sanders has done at Colorado? Let's talk about the quarterbacks in this year's draft. Cam Ward, Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, Kyle McCord, Jackson Dart. Can you think, have you read, have you seen anything that they've done in their college career that is anything close to what Shedure Sanders has done? The answer to all of those questions is no. No. It's really an amazing thing to watch. Now, when I talk about Shedure Sanders' greatest hits last year and this year at Colorado, and I'm going to talk to you about the Kansas game, where I sat there and watched that thing in pure amazement. Here's another question. That Kansas game, when Sanders pushed an official and then got in an official's face, why in the hell wasn't he ejected? Second question, why in the world didn't the head coach for Colorado sprint onto the field, grab his starting quarterback by the jersey and haul him to the sideline, tell him to take a seat, number 2 guy, get loose, you're in the game? It didn't happen. Neither of those things happened, and therein lies the problem with Shedure Sanders. Therein lies the problem. If you want leadership coming from your starting quarterback that shows a consistent loss of emotional control and a consistent disregard for authority, he's your man. Okay, that leads me to my 4th category now, and that's miscellaneous. Now, miscellaneous is all of the stuff that surrounds a quarterback that does not involve him playing the position when the ball is snapped. Okay, it's the inner workings of the quarterback. It's character. It's mindset. It's attitude. It's what he does when he's off the football facility and he's out in the community. Because your quarterback, it's a 24-hour-a-day job, 7 days a week, face of the franchise. That's why you get paid the big bucks, right? Now, in 36 years of coaching, I had three quarterbacks that started for me that were shitheads. And in all 3 of those years, we struggled. We struggled as a team. We struggled as an offense. And that wasn't a coincidence. Okay. It just doesn't mix. It's oil and water. Now, in an earlier video I did this year, I said that I thought that Shedure had put away a lot of that dumbass antics that he pulled last year on the field. You know, that he had focused more on just playing. But man, was I wrong. 100% wrong. Because when I started doing more of a deep dive and pulled up more clips, he was the same dude this year that he was last year. And again, a leopard doesn't change its spots. Now I'm going to give you a quote from Shedure about the upcoming draft where he said, quote, "You don't think I could come into an NFL franchise and change a program again? It's history, and it's always going to repeat itself." That last sentence, it's always going to repeat itself. He is right on the money. A leopard doesn't change its spots. Okay, so now we get to the part of this show where we go over Shedure Sanders' greatest hits the last 2 years in Boulder, Colorado. These are just a few of the examples of his behavior, which, as I'm giving these to you, keep the question in your head. How many NFL quarterbacks and top flight college quarterbacks have done any of this stuff in the history of the game? Okay, here we go. Various games where he stepped onto the field for pregame warm-ups and immediately started talking garbage to the other team. Now, he loves the camera. He ain't stupid. He knows that the cameras are on him, and he knows the mics are on him, and he knows that those sound bites are going out across the country. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? Then we go to one of my all-time favorites, and that's after the Arizona State game in 2023, where he was getting heckled the entire game by ASU's student section. And if the Sun Devils hadn't stepped on their ding-dong at the end of that game, that would have been an L. But Shedure thought it was a great idea to put it back in the fans' face by having his diamond watch there on the sideline so that he could put it on while in full uniform and walk up to the stands and do that. Now, I said this in an earlier show. Any other quarterback, you already gave ASU the loss. You already beat their butt. That's all the facial you need for the fans getting in your dish all game long. As you're walking off the field and you're getting abused verbally, just turn and point to the scoreboard with a smile on your face and keep walking. That diamond watch stunt, brutal. And here's a little side note to that thing. If you remember this, a couple of weeks later, month later, down the road, Colorado traveled to Pasadena, California to play the Bruins, UCLA, in the Rose Bowl. You don't think that there were some dudes in LA watching Shedure pull that watch stunt going, wow, don't those guys come out here in a couple of weeks to play? Man, their players have some really nice stuff. And sure enough, that locker room got busted into and Colorado's players were robbed. All their jewelry was stolen. Probably wasn't a smart thing to do there. Okay, then we've got him getting into the face of the ball boy at Texas Tech. Classy. Grabbing an opponent's mouthpiece off of his face mask, turning and chucking it into the stands after they scored a touchdown. Then we've got the Kansas debacle. Now, this one still amazes me, and I talked about it earlier, but he thought that Kansas was taking cheap shots at him when they were tackling him. Here's a newsflash, Shedure. When you put a bullseye on your back by being a massive shit talker, you're going to have guys come after you. That's been happening for the entire history of sports. Any sport. That's what happens. Right? So if you want to dance, you got to pay the band. So because he thought that he was getting attacked unnecessarily by Kansas and the officials didn't call anything, he pushed an official. And as I said earlier, his ass should have been ejected. His head coach should have yanked his butt off the field, but it didn't stop there. He proceeded to get in an official's face, not once, but he tried it twice and got pulled away by one of his teammates. Unbelievable. Okay, then we go to the Nebraska game. Shoved a teammate on the sideline, walked off the field early in protest because he got his ass kicked the entire game, didn't shake hands, just walked off the field. And then in the press room after the game, he threw his offensive line under the bus and blamed them for getting his ass kicked. Smart. He had another altercation with a ref in the Oklahoma State game. As I said, disregard for authority, and where is his head coach? Colorado State, in-state rivalry. It's a nasty one, right? Just like any in-state rivalry is. Sticking his fingers into the face of a Colorado State player, refusing to shake hands with the starting quarterback for Colorado State after the game, talking shit to him while he refused to shake his hand. Now, I'm going to have guys that are going to get on here and go, yeah, but Kansas was taking shots at his knees, and yeah, Colorado State's quarterback was talking smack too. Okay, fine. That happens, right? It's part of the game. Again, when you put a target on your back by your behavior, you got to expect certain things coming back at you. After the game, act like a leader, a starting quarterback. Okay? You can have words with your opponent. You can have dislike and hatred for your opponent. After the game, win or lose, look him in the eye and shake his hand. Okay, guys. So at the end of the day, this is my analysis in a nutshell. For whatever skill level Shedure Sanders has physically as a quarterback, it's overshadowed by the other red flags that are attached to him. And if Shedure Sanders did not have Sanders, the name Sanders, on the back of his jersey, he would be an average quarterback and viewed as an average quarterback by NFL gurus. But because of the demand for quarterbacks in the NFL, he is going to be drafted high. And it's going to be interesting to see how high he does go. But in my opinion, not a first rounder. Cam Ward is the only first round quarterback in this draft. There's going to be others taken. Again, it's demand for the position. Okay. And the best case scenario for some of these other teams that don't draft Cam Ward is to bring another guy in, draft him, and then hope you've got a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator that can sort of mold and guide this guy and eventually become a dude for you. But you got to have the right mental makeup and attitude for that to happen. And I don't see that happening with Sanders. We'll see. Draft day is going to be interesting. Okay. If you enjoyed my take on Shedure Sanders or my take on quarterbacks, offense, passing game, coaching, hit that like button and please subscribe to the channel QB Unfiltered. I appreciate the support. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.